Aloha. Welcome to our 6th season of Human Rights and Sustainability Campus Community Dialogue. The focus is to bring together the campus and community to discuss important issues related to the fields of human rights and sustainability. And this is our February edition, Valentine's Day. And we're actually coming to you live from Manoa campus. And at Manoa, we're actually doing the Billion Rising event outside. And so at the Billion Rising event outside, we actually have a couple of different things. We have tarot testing with different tarot from the Center for Hawaiian Studies that's grown there. We also have people making signs and putting their signs up that we'll talk about a little bit later. And we also have that we're giving away plants for people to take them home and start planning their own food security. And since we met last month we had 2 different activities. We had one to show you how to advocate at the legislature for your human rights, and another one looking at youth engagement with the United Nations Association. And for February 14th, we're focusing on climate change and gender justice, as well as adaptation models around the world. So it's also the anniversary of Billion Rising. So we're connected with all the other organizations and communities standing up together with their flash mobs and dancing for justice and democracy, as well as personal dignity for all people on the planet. So it's great that we can have people joining us this time. It's raining a lot across the state, so we know that's a difficult thing, but we thank you for coming and showing up. Since the last time we met, there were a couple things going on. The World Economic Forum took place in Davos, Switzerland, and that brought together, of course, the heads of state, as well as with different individuals who were organizing to work on specific projects. Matt Damon's water.org project that we can discuss as well. And another important thing was also the State of the Union. And that was quite significant because President Obama, from the 19th through the 21st minute, focused on the important issue of climate change, saying that it's real and that we owe it to our future generations that will actually take actions and organize to ensure human rights for the people. And so one thing we thought we'd do first is just show the Billion Rising video that just came up. It's kind of a powerful film. And we'll start with that, and then we'll come back to our event here on Oahu. right, so that was the first film that we're going to show there. That was the new screener that they're putting out for today. And across Hawaii, everyone's organizing Billion Rising activities. Of course, they're dancing in the rain now in Manoa outside. But other great things are happening at Manoa, which are definitely worth showing. One of the most important things is a food security workshop. At the food security workshop, here you can see kalo. We're actually passing these out and giving them to students and giving them as well small sheets so they can know how to grow it and that it'll actually be able to live and survive. Also, little facts about how good it is for eating and, more importantly, sometimes medicinal value as well. So there, of course, is kalo, very valuable, very ono as well. Along that lines, people are also making signs. So here's one saying plant kalo, it's all edible. Mahalo, haloa, very important one there. The other one that we have is the important one here of uwala. Uwala, of course, right here, and the nice plant, talking about here, pointed purple and green leaves, intense violet stems. Watering is okay, but full sun and can handle relatively dry conditions. So it's a very important plant here as well. The sweet potato, also onolicious. And then we had one more message here of be sustainable. We owe it to our future keiki, local. And then the final one that we'll show today was support our ecosystems, grow your plants, and buy local, aloha. So there's around 100 signs outside there. The tarot tasting is going well. And then there's also a group, Lama, that's organizing the entire thing with Malia, focusing on climate change adaptation throughout Oceania. So this is an activity that we're doing with Billion Rising around the world and organizing. And I thought I'd show one more video that was looking at Billion Rising and what happened last year. And then after this video, then we'll talk a little bit about what people are doing around Hawaii and sharing their story, if that sounds good.
Well, it is Valentine's Day like no
To mark
other.
Valentine's Day, the 1 Billion Rising
1 billion rising campaign.
Dünya çapında 1 milyar kadın kadına şiddete
1 billion women will be right.
Every 2 minutes, somewhere in the United States, someone is sexually assaulted.
Próbáljuk támogatni, illetve felhívni a figyelmet.
Well, 1 Billion Rising is a movement which calls for an end to violence and gender inequality. The global campaign, dubbed 8 Billion Rising.
Somali women in Mogadishu have joined the wall in
Fact, in every village you will see scenes like these.
Naklas Road'lo 1 billion rising జరుగుతోంది.
Birazdan burada kentteki ikinci eylem dansını
1 billion rising campaign all in full swing across the world.
Everybody should be here. This is a call for 1 billion rising.
Filipinos in London and around the world are part of the campaign against violence towards
The
women.
spirit is Jago re Jago. India Jago. day, so everyone's dancing all over the world.
It's part of a global revolution.
In more than 205 countries today, people are rising.
I want to tell you, you are making history. This has never happened before in the world, that 200 countries have come together.
This thing that we are part of today has never happened in the history of the world.
So the great thing is, around the world, women are organizing and rising up together to give their perspectives about the important issues of gender justice. And here on Oahu, like I said, we're having our own event. And the focus of today's theme was roots, resistance, and redefining romance. Because we know love is much more than just those cheap chocolates people buy, and more importantly, those little roses they cut. We looked at doing more sustainably, so we have got all these plants here that we're passing out to students going by. We also are working on important issues because women are impacted most by climate change. So here we have the Hawaii climate sheet. I can bring that up real quick. There's the Hawaii climate change. It's a briefing sheet that's looking at the important issues of climate change adaptation here in Hawaii. Another one I have here is climate change law and policy in Hawaii. And that's being coordinated with the UH Law School, with LAMA as well. and Pacific Risa. They're outside at the booths there. And then the last one, just to show you really quickly, is Climate Change in Pacific Islands, Indicators and Impacts. So these are some of the information that's being shared outside. That's part of the global campaign for the Billion Rising. And I just wanted to turn it over to Alianta on Maui. I know she's a very busy woman doing lots of things, but I thought Billion Rising is very important. It was, of course, created by Eve Ensler out of the work she was doing with Vagina Monologues. And those are very important activities that happen usually on our Valentine's Day. But the Billion Rising is brand new for one day to get women around the world to rise up. But I know Alianta's been doing activities around Maui and creating a brand new nonprofit that's very much dedicated to a lot of the issues we're talking about today. And I thought it'd be great just to hear more about it and discuss with her about that. So Alianta?
Thank you, Josh. I'm totally happy to be here. So I have to hold this thing down the entire time I'm talking?
No, I think you just touch it and leave it. Try that. Does it work?
Apparently not.
Okay.
Okay, so
I hope you don't get a finger cramp from that.
You know, it's better than tweeting my Friday away, so we'll try it out. Yeah, so here on Maui, we started a nonprofit about a year and a half ago. It's called Ke'au Ikamakani Hoi Ha'ili. It's named after the wind of the particular site that we're at. We have 64 acres of county land in Wai'ehu, which is in Wailuku. And the county just acquired this property about a year ago. So we're working with them to take over the lease and be able to care for the land full time. What we've done so far is put in 5 taro patches, and we've been maintaining them. And we also have a garden growing, and we actually have a lot of uala, which is awesome to grow because you basically just throw it in the dirt and it grows. Not a lot of maintenance. And we've got a couple different varieties of taro. We're doing the dryland taro though because there's not enough water flowing to the ocean for us to do wetland taro. So we have adapted, and that's another issue related not just to climate change, but also food sovereignty. So our immediate goal for this nonprofit is to grow our own food and be sustainable, at least for this pauku, this area of Wailuku. It's one of the last open spaces. Can you pull up the website, Josh?
I can try, yeah. Let me know what the what is the address?
It is kaehu.com, Kaehu. Kaehu.
There you go.
So if you take a look at this, yeah, so if you take a look at the picture, can you scroll down a little more?
Sure.
You can immediately identify the 64 acres of open land.
Yes.
Surrounded by the Wai'ehu tract development. So we're really trying to preserve it. And there's also, if you see those 2 circles of how the darker green, that's where fish ponds used to be, ancient local i'a. So we are going to be working on rebuilding the fish ponds so that we can not only grow kalo, but fish as well.
Cool.
What else do you want to know?
What was the inspiration behind it? And then how are you able to go about doing that? And then I think now you get to do it like as almost full time, right? So that's great that you're able to put your energy behind this and then moving forward with it.
Yeah, it's been a pretty special piece of land. I mean, there's cultural significance as far as burials and archaeological sites. We also have a lot of unique lineal descendant history that we've found on the land. Kahikili's warriors used to train there. And it used to feed, apparently, this entire side of Maui, the entire Wai'ehu, Wailuku side. So we want to really just restore what used to be there and bring the land back to its glory as much as possible. I am in Papaoli. I do Hawaiian chanting, and I've been chanting down there for about the past 4 or 5 years now, and it's just a special place to me. So after I graduated from UH, I kind of didn't really have a lot going on. And the community, we got a group of people together and we decided to form a nonprofit. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of work to get a nonprofit formed, but we're doing it. And the more people know about it, the more they want to become involved. So it's, and when you're working for something like sustainability, like food security, like climate justice, like community capacity building, like cultural values, different traditional cultural things, like we want to get hula classes and language classes and et cetera down there too. A really holistic approach to how a community should operate.
That's actually good. It looks like, I mean, it's kind of like how so many things start as so small, but how much work goes into it, and then more importantly, how it can grow. And, you know, the way the West views the world of compartmentalizing everything till nothing's connected and no one knows what to do, I think it sounds like a great vision, especially to bring everything back. And when you look at the way you said it, in between every one of your likes, it was all the things that people stand up and care about. When you look at the issue of food sovereignty, when you look at the issue of climate justice, when you look at the issue of cultural renaissance with making sure that Hawaii is what it was, and more importantly, what it could be in the future, and not just stuck with this these development models that we have here of townhouses and other things that just sprawl out across our islands, but in a way, looking forward by being rooted in the past and walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. I think it looks like a great project.
Absolutely, and that was kind of one of our first principles, was that we had to look at our kupuna, we had to look at what was there before. We had to talk to the original people of this particular land to see where we should go and how we should be guided and what should guide us to get there. And when we look at a long-term vision, a lot of us in the community, and we're going to be doing a lot more community outreach as well, we're just getting started, but when we look to the community, we want to create a safe community space for children, for families, where kids will know what plants are good for healing what cuts and when is the best time to fish on this part and what they should be fishing for. You know, we want to bring it back to a simpler time and get them off of their iPads. That's the other thing.
That sounds good, especially there's too much high tech and not enough high touch these days.
Only good touching though, right?
Right, of course. And so when you're looking at the high good touching, and the important thing there is that you're even starting with the children, I think that'll make a difference, because then they'll know that from when they grew up, and that'll be their memories there, not just, you know, the McDonald's on the corner or the other things that have been there. So I think that'll set up a good, really, example of engagement and empowerment, that they can see how to also then occupy more space and reclaim land to build more examples like this. And then it gives better examples for what's amazing on Maui than the recent example of a lot of women missing. I think that'd be, of course, a lot better for everybody to see that important part of Maui there. Are there any other aspects you'd like to add or discuss? I am glad to get you off your tweeting and have you come and talk. The cool thing about this system with the Hawaii Interactive Television is we can actually talk about any issue between the islands and then connect people together without, you know, flying or leaving the places that we love. So interesting enough, last November, before the end of the year, was the issues related to pesticides and GMOs. And what we did is we were able to connect the people on Mokokeawe over on the Big Island with the people on Kauai. And Kauai was actually just having their final decision on the new bills they were looking at regarding how many pesticides go into the land. And then the people on Mokokeawe over on Hawaii were also looking at moving their legislation forward at the county level. So they were able to share a strategy back and forth that way. So looking forward, we have in March, it's usually around International Women's Day, so we can get people together to discuss that way. And then in April is Earth Day, so we'll be doing that on April 22nd. So some of the things that we're looking at doing next is the world, of course, is meeting to discuss the Sustainable Development Goals, what will replace the Millennium Development Goals. And there's one video I'd like to show you, and it's Mary Robinson, and she's connecting the climate change issues and, more importantly, the post-2015. So I know you've been involved a lot at the global level, and I know it takes a lot of energy to do the grassroots activism and then the global advocacy, but I know you understand the connections between the two. And Mary Robinson, of course, was president of Ireland, but then also became the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And 2015 will be a really important year for a couple of things. The first is the MDGs will lapse, and then, more importantly, we're creating the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And the exciting thing about the difference between the MDGs and the SDGs is that the MDGs were kind of created at a conference at the UN, and then everybody was just told about them, and people tried to organize to meet those 8 goals. But what Ban Ki-moon decided and what they aimed at for the SDGs was, let's do it from the grassroots level and make sure anyone could write them. So I'll pull up this video real quick, and it's Mary Robinson discussing the SDGs and the post-2015 development agenda. But the other important thing besides the SDGs is that the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change should have a binding treaty on carbon, and more importantly, set the tone for how we'll move in the future. So 2015, there's 2 big international developments that are quite crucial. So I'll pull up the climate justice and the post-2015 video there with Mary Robinson, and then after that, we'll look at what people are doing, and maybe we can look at doing one on Maui as well as on Oahu and maybe on Kauai too, where we could have an SDG consultation, and they have it all set up already at the UN where you get to pick and vote for what you care about. So it's kind of a good project you can take into the community. It's all on a website even. So it's the world we want, and you vote for that. But we'll show the short video by Mary Robinson first, and then discuss that right afterwards.
I came to the idea of climate justice from my human rights work in African countries with my colleagues. We were working on rights to food and safe water, health, education, working on corporate responsibility, working on women, peace and security. And because we were a very small organization, we had to partner with a lot of partners, including governments. And I was traveling to different countries in Africa, and I kept hearing the same statement, but things are so much worse. And that was about climate shocks, about the rainy seasons not coming the way they used to, about long periods of drought and then flash flooding, about the problem of growing food when you had that unpredictability and no insurance, no plan B. And I realized this was a huge injustice, that climate was affecting the poorest countries and communities disproportionately and faster than parts of the world that weren't in these vulnerable areas, and that these people were not responsible for the greenhouse gas emissions. And so that brought me to climate justice, to a foundation on climate justice. And I think climate justice is very important because it links human rights, development, and climate change. In 2015, we have to achieve 2 huge global agendas. We've got to achieve the agenda of post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals for all countries. And we have to achieve a robust climate agreement. They're not separate issues. They're inextricably linked. And when you take a climate justice approach, you see that. It's very important that we look at the post-2015 agenda in a very holistic way, that it has to actually address the exclusion and poverty of those who, in the 21st century, are suffering in a way that is unconscionable, that 1 billion people, more or less, wake up hungry, live in poverty, children living in poverty, millions of children out of school, and that we understand also that governance issues, that sexual reproductive health issues are vital to changing that, and that we link the Sustainable Development Goals with the necessity for a paradigm shift of attitudes in the richer parts of the world towards low carbon economy, but one that can be a successful economy with different growth and consumption patterns. And we can still have a good life. But the benefits of that also have to be felt by those who have been suffering disproportionately because of the impacts of climate change. And I think that that justice and fairness issue is one that the human rights community has to get behind. And climate justice obviously brings that together. And we have to link those two agendas and speak urgently about the need to stay below 2 degrees Celsius of warming, or we would say 1.5 degrees, in order that small island states can continue and that we don't have millions of people having to leave the land of the bones of their ancestors, which is the fear.
All right, so really important short film there, but definitely the important issues, and that's one of the things we'll look at. One thing I want to look at is the world we want, YouTube, see if I can find that for you. But the world we want is short little thing that's trying to bring everyone together. So I want to just show that to you quickly, because the goal there is that people describing for themselves what the issues are that should be looked at, and then talking together about the way that they want to go forward. So here's this one there. Let me go back real. There you go.
In Rwanda's capital, Kigali, hundreds of girls are voting on the issues they want the world to focus on over the next generation. They are participating in a global conversation taking place here and in 193 countries on all continents, where people are meeting up and making their views known to world leaders. No one is better acquainted with the challenges young people face than Jean. He is representing the interests of young Rwandans at one of several national consultations across the country.
The most important goals as a youth is to have a good job, to have better health care, to have access to other ways of interacting with the other youth around the world.
In the year 2000, the Millennium Development Goals identified 8 targets aimed at reducing global poverty. From universal education to protecting the environment, these goals provided a blueprint for government action.
People across the world have mobilized for the MDGs, the most successful anti-poverty push in history. Now, we must finish the job and tackle a new generation of development challenges.
As 2015 quickly approaches, people are influencing the next set of goals. Whether meeting publicly, online, or via text message, modern technology has changed the way people can discuss what's important to them. Clarice understands the power of social media. Her company built a digital service for more than 20,000 teenage girls to interact and share their opinions by text message.
The role of technology in providing people with an opportunity to share their opinions on what they think should be at the top of the agenda, I believe is a very critical one. It gives people a sense of ownership. Over 50% of Rwandans have access to a mobile phone. This is just an amazing channel just to get their opinion, and it's very affordable.
I want this to be the most inclusive global development process the world has ever known. Development, after all, is about people. People must be in the driver's seat. Their aspirations and ambitions must shape our policies and goals.
87 countries worldwide have held national consultations, town hall-style discussions where people met up to share what is most important to them. The priorities they raised were recorded by the United Nations and will be presented to world leaders tasked with designing the next generation of development goals. Josephine is sharing her ideas at one of the meetups near her home in Kigali. She works 2 jobs and struggles to pay college tuition for her daughters. She's concerned about the opportunities young people will have in the future.
Ikindi cyifuzo nuko nifuza ko abana banje bakwiga bakarangiza amashuri bakiga neza bamara kwiga bakabona akazi.
The United Nations has engaged hundreds of thousands of people in consultations around the world, a historic effort for a historic policy-making process.
When I look at where we are today, we know that education has played a really big role in our ability to create our own jobs and improve the livelihood of our families. We're able to actually make a difference and, fix real-world problems with practical skills. Education, for me, is at the top of, my agenda.
For my generation, what I see a key element or focus is having a good job, a good education, qualified people to the job market.
This process will shape global development for the next generation, and we need to get it right. Our goal is to empower people and build better lives for all while protecting our planet. This is the essence of sustainable development.
So that was a small, short one, but still a pretty vital overview of what they're trying to do. So one exciting thing that we could do, Alianta, is that, we could look at doing those across Hawaii. We could use this television system, we could use Google Hangout, or we could also do them in communities. But it would be interesting because anytime you vote, the tally goes straight to the UN, and then the UN keeps track of it. And there's 2 groups. One is the Open Working Group, which is all the governments meeting together and deciding, and the other is a high-level panel headed by David Cameron from the UK, as well as the finance minister from Nigeria, and like eminent people, 30 of them. So it seems like a simple way, but then it's not just about the SDGs, but then it's finding out what everybody cares about in Hawaii and then creating local versions of those where they then could be kind of excited like you are to do what you believe in, as opposed to trying to do what everybody tells us what we should do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would love to be a part of that. It sounds, inclusiveness, what Ban Ki-moon was talking about, is so important, especially right now with the level of globalization and our economy and getting away from too much dependency of outside sources, I guess. So getting as many people involved in the community and just the awareness, I think you can always create more awareness. It's never a bad thing. And being able to be heard not just locally or on a state level, but national and international is such an amazing opportunity. I think that it should be taken advantage of whenever we can.
Yeah, it just came out and it's not finalized, which is important. And then it is good because they actually have it just on one sheet. When you look at the world we want and you look at what they have, it really is just one small sheet. And then from there, you could actually see what people are doing and how they're doing it. So to me, it looks pretty amazing if it looks that small and that simple. It's been kind of exciting that way. This is the website of the world we want. And so you can actually see, here's that, and then you get to pick whatever of the 16 issues you think are the most important. And everyone can actually vote on it and decide. So we think it's actually been a pretty good tool. And the more that we've done it, the more we've realized anyone can participate. And here's some of the themes that they're coming up with. And even look right here, if we go on to this right now, we could do it a couple of ways with the youth. And I know you're more connected as well. What we could do is we could actually let people use technology and have it set up depending on where we're at. Maybe if we're in Hana or some of the more remote places or Makawao, technology is not as but we can have people do the papers and vote on ballots and then tabulate those and send those in. And we can also have people just doing it straight away directly on the internet. So people can actually vote that way. And then what I thought we could do here in Hawaii is the SDGs are going to be around for a while. It's not when 2015 comes, it's over. But the exciting thing is from 2014 now until 2015, people can vote and shape them. And that thing gets everybody excited and participating. But then more importantly, once they're picked, the exciting thing is we can actually then have people say, what are you going to do now related to SDG? Right now there's 12 of them with SDG 1 on Maui that then realizes that goal. And the exciting thing and the difference between the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals is SDGs will apply to all 193 countries. It's not going to just be like the MDGs just for the so-called developing world. It's for every country, every community. So the exciting thing then is, while you're doing your project on Maui, and if someone says, why are you doing this and what is this for and how is it significant in the world, not only can you give the historical context of the cultural significance of that piece of land where you're working, but you can also say it's in the future, this is what everybody's doing in the world. And then you're connected to that global movement at the same time without being distracted by the global agenda, but just allowing what you're doing anyway to fit into that global agenda and connect with other people who might be doing similar land restoration projects. So the idea behind the SDGs is it's just brand new. It allows us to think about that. And it's not perfect yet, of course. It's, just been there. They're coming up with different ideas. This is interesting here where you can see the different things of what they're looking at. So these are the thematic consultations real quick that have come up so far. Inequalities, absolutely crucial. Governance, growth and employment, environmental sustainability, education, health, food security and nutrition, conflict and fragility, population dynamics, water and energy. And if you look at those, over half of them at least fit into your project already. From growth and employment, environment and sustainability, education, food security and nutrition, water, all those things come up as well as health. And then it connects with the global agenda of what's going on, but more importantly, you frame it with what's valuable to you on the local level. So that's kind of an exciting thing of what we could look at and things that we could do where either one, like I said, we come up with a strategy on each island and we could base them at the university or even in the high schools and try to get community programs to be able to allow everyone to pick. And it'd be pretty simple. It could be, the video you just saw plus 2 other short ones and then discussion and let everybody meet and then vote and decide for themselves. And the cool part is that, like it does say, you can actually log in, sign up, and participate directly. So it's an idea of what we could start doing in March and do that through May before, most people get into all the other issues and the semesters end. So that's just one thing that I thought I'd share with you and get your perspective on. And
no, I definitely think involving the youth, even at high school and the university level, is important to get them activated and interested in what's going on around them and on an international level. I think there's such a disconnect sometimes from everyday teenagers and the politics and policy that is actually totally shaping their lives. So being able to get them, involved firsthand and see how they can make a hands-on difference might be, good and change them maybe.
Yeah. It could in a way kind of serve as like, the gateway advocacy. The first thing they do, and it seems so small and simple, and then actually, like most people know, once you get involved in politics a little bit, it's amazingly exciting when you're able to see if you can make a difference and do the things that you've been able to do already in your time that you've been getting involved as well.
Absolutely.
All righty.
It's just funny to think about myself from where I was, going through school and being concerned about certain issues and being upset about certain things and thinking things should change, and oh, I'm just a student writing papers, and then it kind of, you just follow it and it kind of turns into something else. And I ended up traveling and helping write policy and starting a nonprofit, and kind of a lot more government work maybe than you'd expect doing a nonprofit, but you have to make good contacts and good relationships.
Yeah, and it sounded like you made progress. I mean, if you're able to get a connection with the county and it's in no way compromising the goals of what you want to do. I think a lot of time we always think of government as like this evil entity. And, especially if you're teaching political science, everybody's like, government, it's over there. But, still on Maui and as well as even in the state of Hawaii, you can actually go down and meet with your elected officials, talk to them. And if you have a good idea, it can turn to an initiative. And then yours, like an initiative, and in a way comes an institution that then can be vibrant. I mean, it can have the values and the voice of the people from the region to be able to participate, and it'll even continue to grow beyond how you see it even today. And it is true.
And that's a huge advantage that we have being in Maui and being in Hawaii. We have a huge advantage that we have to take advantage, that we have a responsibility to do something about it.
Yeah, I know. One thing we were doing on the county level is we were finding out what people have done around the U.S. on human rights. And they actually have city-county resolutions on a state of human rights. And Washington, D.C. was one of the first ones. And it was pretty cool. They talked to high school students and shared with them about human rights. And then from that, they said they wanted human rights to be the framework for them to decide on how the Washington, D.C. Council made decisions for the city. And they actually passed it. And now a couple other countries, and more importantly, cities in Seattle and other places have passed those too. And we're looking at doing those across the state of Hawaii. So maybe we might do that together, and I'll send that to you. And like it is usually done, it's an education campaign where everybody's like, why pass this? What's it about? But then the interesting thing is once it is passed, if certain people are trying to pass bills or do things that go against the values of human rights, we can bring it up as a reminder of, you passed this resolution on Maui being a county of human rights. And this should guide our policies. And this, what you're proposing, would actually go against what you, of course, said would be your guiding principles. So, and it is fascinating how far things can go at the same point. I know, I definitely, if you think about from the classroom to then community engagement, and then after that, global civil society, it's, with technology, there's so many ways to connect good people to do good projects. It's important to do that. Let me show one more video for you real quick, and then it's the important issue looking at a climate justice narrative that's been valuable, and then I'll send you some information to follow up, and let's see if we can plan in March sometime together a Sustainable Development Goals Summit or a consultation with the community, and we'll work it out where either we do it on Google Hangouts or I'll come over and we can do different things, but just to try to keep the momentum.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. I need momentum keeping.
Okay, that's good, because I know. Yes, go ahead.
Is anybody else watching this if those rooms are empty?
They are empty. It was the first time we tried it on Valentine's Day. So normally we have it on each island, and Hawaii Island has brought their UNA USA, United Nations Association Club. So what we're looking at and what we're aiming to do on each island is to kind of bring the Amnesty International, the United Nations Association. I don't know, did you meet ONE last week? Claire Hazelgrove from the ONE campaign was actually on Maui. Did you hear? Okay, so just all the groups that kind of care about these common issues to be able to come together and network once a month with the interactive television system. And the idea behind it was we were thinking Valentine's Day would be a good day. And then we got so active here on Oahu with the Billion Rising that everyone's actually organizing things, and it's all actually at the same time. And no one can come into their rooms from their events that are happening in Hilo right now and on Kauai. But the idea behind it is that every month we'd have a gathering, and everybody can just share mana'o of what they're doing, or more importantly say, I'm not sure what's going on and how can we connect. So that's the idea behind it. And depending on the month, we range from this low one of 2 to as high as 35 last month on the one looking at how to do advocacy and lobbying. And it brought all the people working with children that are being adopted and looking at those issues of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And one exciting aspect about it that happened is it actually can record. So we record them and then we're able to then post it to the website and do things. So it's kind of an endless ability to be able to engage on new ways.
No, I think this HITS thing is amazing, except that I can't see myself. And yeah,
but you look okay from here.
4, 5, 6, 7. I can see 8 different empty rooms, or 8 angles of empty rooms, but not me. But I can see you on the other big one. I was also kind of asking to see how professional I should be if depending on my audience, right?
So it's absolutely fine. And we can work on it too for future things. It was just one of those things I thought, I know we do email often, and I know you're always like, how can I be more involved? And I was trying to think of like, what's the thing we could do on a monthly basis that's not too much work, but then it also allows you too that you can tell people like, oh, I want to hear this speaker. So a lot of times we feature speakers that we usually bring in, and instead of taking them to every island and doing that giant carbon footprint, we've been doing it through this technique. So
no, I think this is great, and I think just the first things that already come to my mind is organizing any student cohort or anything here, and any relationships with any of the high schools that may already exist, and utilizing the student energy.
I absolutely agree.
Volunteer labor is what I like.
Yes. No, one of the things we are looking at is more and more Amnesty International and ONE are doing lobbying for Congress on important issues. And they've done a really good job. So what we're thinking about doing is just having something simple like Human Rights Club on every campus across Hawaii, and then have this used as a way to share the information from DC or from New York when we get it, and then allows everybody to make phone calls and take action. The other thing we thought would be valuable, especially with the upcoming election, when you have all the different people running for the Senate seat, as well as the people coming in to try to get the House seat as they vie for the big Senate seat, is then everyone lobbying and being able to put pressure, because most of our politicians, only so few people participate, but we thought this could be a great tool to get more people engaged. So the idea would be, just setting up at UH Maui a small human rights club. And most people, when we've set up the clubs, they have a United Nations Association club, an Amnesty club, a Peace Action club, and a ONE club, but they don't, and each one of them has 4 members each. So what we're trying to do is say, look, for a human rights club, let's just bring everyone together. And then, of course, everyone works on the issues they care about. But instead of having 4 people in 4 different places, try to bring everyone together more often.
Yeah, mobilizing people and getting everybody in one connected thing is so much better than trying to do everything, all the same things individually. That's what we're doing with the nonprofit too, is kind of working with the other ones in the area to see how they did it, to see what worked, what didn't work. And it's so much easier when you've got support and guidance from people that have been there. God.
Yeah, I know. We've created nonprofits, and some of them have, they thrive in the beginning because everyone's excited, but then to maintain them, especially after a year or two, and actually go to the next level is the challenging part. That's perfect. So no, definitely, I'll let you know via email potential dates for March. I already know April for sure will be Earth Day, so that's a good one to organize around, that we can have an Earth Day activity across Hawaii and be able to network that way. And then the other side is, we're really pleased when we did it last November to be able to work on a topic that's really imminent, that a vote was going down in the Kauai County Council that next day, and include the people who are actually involved with the votes to share the issue, and then for them to talk back and forth strategy about what are they facing with the multinational corporations and what they can do next. In fact, one of the things that came up with that is The people on Kauai want to take the next step, and they're concerned with the state of Hawaii passing a law that would allow the state of Hawaii to decide instead of the counties. So we're looking at the upcoming sessions of the UN where the US will be reviewed. And next month for March, the one will actually be very important is the Human Rights Committee, the one focusing on the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So next month from March 10th through 15th, the focus of the Civil and Political Rights Review will actually be the United States of America. So there will be 18 experts reviewing the human rights record of the United States, focusing specifically on civil and political, but it's broad. Article 1 is the right of self-determination. Article 27 is culture and language. So there's so much room there. And so what we're looking at doing with that is bringing the voice of the people from Kauai that passed a bill and then were sued by the 3 corporations to not change their ways. And that's kind of a growing trend where, you know, you actually had the SEC say that corporations had to say how much money they were putting in when they were going to other countries, such as, you know, Nigeria for oil deals. And instead of saying, oh, that's a great compliance issue to have transparency, they sued the SEC. So this is kind of the trend that if we do use our tools and we're able to make laws that are passed to then guarantee our rights, then the corporations sue, and then that's when most people, of course, go, well, what can we do now? We don't have the funds to be able to organize. So we're going to take the case of Kauai to Geneva next month, and we're going to do it under a couple of different issues. One of self-determination, because you have the right in paragraph 2 of Article 1 to use your natural wealth and resources as you want. So the people there voted that they would rather at least know what's being put in the ground by the companies, but also put in more sustainable food that is, of course, from Kauai. But 2, the right to information, that everyone should know what's going on and that it shouldn't be something that they have to actually organize for just to be able to know what's happening. So a couple of medical doctors and different people involved in the community have been a little alarmed at how people's health has been closest to the places where they're spraying the pesticides and growing some of the food. So we're going to try to connect them with the U.S. Human Rights Network as well as with the global work, because we see that all over the world where corporations come and spray and do what they want without considering its impact on the, in this case, the island community of Kauai.
That's amazing. That's great. That's what an opportune time to bring the issue forward.
It is, and it just worked out so well. So we're going to bring potentially the legislators or the county councilmen. They have a connection with United, so they might be able to fly there and then be able to speak. And then if not, we're going to use Skype so they can connect with the side events to organize that way. We've been using Google Hangouts and Skype last month in Geneva. So we actually had people from Cambodia and Vietnam actually be protesting outside, come in, and then give the UN exact updates about what's going on in their country right before they did the Universal Periodic Review of their country. So I'm trying to get better with technology. I know you're a little bit better at it than me, but trying to figure out how we can organize better to engage people.
I'm not that good with technology. I don't even know how to turn this on. So,
hey, but you tweet and do all those other really good things. So next thing I want to do is just feature this climate justice narrative. It's a short video, but a pretty good one where they're explaining how they can approach it. And it's probably the newest area of human rights work. So I thought I'd feature that. And then I want to thank you for your time and being able to come in. And then we'll aim to meet up in March, if that sounds good.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me and thinking of me in March.
No, I was definitely trying to think of different ways that we could connect. I was like, how do we organize to do this more often? And then we'll allow you also an avenue that you can bring more people in and how we can grow that. So, and I also wanted to, I've never been able to hear from you personally about the inspiration behind the project and how it's been able to grow so quickly and hear the amazing work you're doing that way.
Did I answer your question enough?
Yeah, it was great. All right, here we go. We'll watch this video and then I'll see if there's one more to show, but thank you so much for your time and energy today. Mahalo. Here's this one.
Welcome.
Well, there are no jobs on a dead planet, so we have a moral imperative to move to the transitions that will take us to a greener economy if we want to hand on a planet to our children and grandchildren. We have to then deal with the optimism of the future and the fear of current populations. And for the trade unions, that's about saying, what is the just transition? How do you provide support for people whose jobs will disappear, whose lands will disappear, who need to be transitioned to another set of realities? So skills, unemployment benefits, support for communities. There are many, many elements of what it takes to be confident that your world today can be transitioned to a world of tomorrow. But it requires a just approach. So climate justice is absolutely critical to the confidence that people feel for themselves and for their children and grandchildren as we move towards greening the planet. New industries, sometimes new homes, more often than not, new technologies that will change the way in which we work and live today. There is a convergence of the solutions to the economic crisis, the inequality that is the economic and social scourge of today, and the imperative to move to a greener economy. When we ask people in 13 countries representing more than half of the world's working people whether or not they supported the investment in green initiatives, in green technologies, in green industries that would provide the jobs of the future, that would deal with both unemployment and climate action, 88% of people said yes. 88%. That's an extraordinary figure for any pollster. So people can feel the confidence and the hope that there is in fact support for a better and greener future.
All right, so that was a good one by a trade unionist. Good to see the labor movement getting involved and coordinating that way. So that was the last film that we kind of wanted to show today. But we also think the climate justice narrative is good because it brings together the environment and human rights to then be able to stand together and on a couple of different levels. It looks at employment, it looks at equality, it looks at equity. It brings it all in one, whereas normally people say if you're against some development project that'll actually be destructive, that you're then standing in the way. And the truth is, we really do have a narrative that describes the new direction for how we all want to move, and it's a global movement that reflects the communities around the planet. So it's really good that way. Just wanted to thank you for coming again. Here's our little uwala, and here's our ko'oko'olau, and then here, of course, is our kalo, and want to thank everyone for participating. The other thing we'll do is we'll find the date for March. That'll be focusing on International Women's Day, so it'll grow with what we're doing this time on Billion Rising, and then we'll coordinate from there. So thank you so much for showing up, and I think it's great that we're able to talk and we can look at how we can do the SDG consultations in the future.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thanks, Josh.
All right. Aloha. I'll talk to you later.
Aloha.
Or less than a month, because I'll see you sooner. Okay. Aloha.
See ya.